In today's video, we're painting up a Goblin Alchemist from the Pathfinder Battles Wizkids range. Okay, so starting off with this Goblin Alchemist, I'm going to do something sort of revolutionary here, and I'm going to choose Goblin Green for the Goblin skin color here. So I know it may blow your mind a little, but it's a really good color, especially for, like it says, it is Goblin Green, and it's a perfect Goblin color, especially if you want to try and match the Pathfinder sort of styling of a Goblin. It's very similar to their green color, so just giving a good overall coat here everywhere. Now remember, I am applying everything in 2 thin coats, so just water down with just a teeny bit of water so you get a smooth coverage and you can really get into all those nooks and crannies, especially over this model. So don't be afraid to apply more than 1 coat. Okay, now with all that goblin skin all picked out, what we're going to be doing is coming in with some cavalry brown now, and I'm going to be using cavalry brown to be picking out pretty much the main part of his armor here. So he's got these sort of leather wrappings and sort of little bits of scrap armor he's cobbled together to make himself an all-over suit of armor. So I'm going with cavalry brown for this. It's going to be a nice color to complement his green skin. So just giving it everywhere that we want to get that. So I'm also going to get the little flaps he's got in front and all, just all over. Everywhere you can see where you think there'd be leather armor is where you want to be applying this. Okay, so now we have all the goblin's armor all painted up. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be coming in with some dirt spatter, and the dirt spatter I'm going to be using to be picking out the barrel that the Goblin Alchemist has on his back. He's carrying this nice big barrel with sort of a a fuse on the back of it so he could light it and blow himself up, I'm guessing. I'm not exactly quite sure. It could also just be some alchemist supply so he can throw his little grenades he has on him, as well as brew himself some potions. So we want to be picking out that barrel to give off that nice natural sort of barrel effect. Okay, so now we have that barrel all picked out. What I'm going to be doing now is coming in with some deck tan, and I'm going to be using the deck tan to be applying to all of his wrappings he has on. He's got some wrappings covering his feet as well as his arms and hands as well. So we want to make sure we use the deck tan to get that out. It's a nice cream sort of off-whitish color, which is, I really quite enjoy it for using it on parts of miniatures that have wrappings on them, especially like that. So it's a nice color, and we just want to get it everywhere that we want to apply that. Okay, so now we have all those wrappings picked out. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some khaki, and the khaki we're going to be using just to be picking out a little pouch he has on the back of him here. Now it can be a little bit hard to see. It's quite hard for me to try and paint and film at the same time as well, so bear with me here if you can't see it quite well. But he has a couple of little pouches and stuff on his back, so we want to be picking those out with the khaki color. Okay, so now we have those pouches picked out. What we're going to be doing now is moving on with some fur brown, and the fur brown I'm going to be using to be applying it to his quiver he's got, except for he doesn't have a quiver of arrows in it. He's sort of got like from what I can tell from the sculpt and the pictures online, it's sort of like a setup of alchemist supplies that seem to be like made out of bones or something like that. At least that's what I'm going to be painting them up as, a sort of tools he's carved out of bones. So giving the fur brown is going to give us a nice offset of all the browns we already have on here as well. Okay, so now we have all that done. What we're going to be doing now is moving on with some charred brown. And for the charred brown, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using it to be picking out our Goblin Alchemist goggles here. Now, this is quite small, finicky detailing on here that we're going to need, so I've grabbed a nice fine point brush so I can really get around all the areas that he has his little goggles on and try and pick them out to the best of my ability. But don't be afraid if you accidentally get it somewhere else trying to get these goggles painted up. And as well as that, I'm also going to be using the charred brown to be painting up the handle on his weapon as well. So don't forget to do that while you're doing it. These goggles will take you a little bit of time. They're very small and detailed, so don't be afraid if this part takes you a little while to do. Okay, so now with our goggles painted in to the best of our ability, we're going to come in now with some skeleton bone. And like I said just before, the quiver he has on him, he's got sort of some supplies for making any sort of alchemist sort of potion or bomb or whatever he can use. So that's so there are these tools. So I'm coming up with the idea, at least in the artwork, it also has some sort of a bony color. So I'm going to make it that he's made some bone tools and supplies so he can build his alchemy things that he needs to build. So just going over with the skeleton bone over these areas. Okay, now with all those picked out, we're going to come in now with some hemp rope. And hemp rope, just as it says on the bottle, I'm going to be using it as some actual hemp rope. Shocker, we'll use some goblin green to be painting up a golden. Now I'm going to be using some hemp rope to be painting up some hemp rope. Very sort of generic of me here. But it's going to be a great color. It's sort of a yellowy, brownish, green color. So it's going to be perfect for the colors that we already have on here and stand out a little bit so you can really notice that there is definitely some rope on here. So just being careful, using a fine tip brush to really pick out those very, very tiny ropes that are all over the miniature. Okay, now with all that painted up, we're going to come in now with some voidshield blue. And the voidshield blue, I'm just going to be dotting in the middle of his goggles to give off the glass effect. Now, I'm not going to be painting eyes on the inside of here. I'm not skilled enough to do that, but I'm going to be doing another sort of technique that you can do with glasses to make them look sort of like actual glass. Okay, so now we have that done, it's time to move on to some metallics. And I'm going to be starting off with some rough iron. So rough iron I'm going to be using, he's got sort of like a little cast iron pot on him that he's carrying on his back. He's carrying a whole arsenal on his back here, so good rough iron is going to be nice for picking out these sort of cast iron pot, as well as I'm also going to be painting up his bomb he's got on here too. I want to make it that he's made a sort of an iron ball that he's going to throw and blow up and shoot projectiles out of, sort of thing. So you may want to switch this to something else, maybe make it out of bone or just something slightly different, but I'm going to have it as this iron color because he's making these things himself. Okay, so now we have that iron picked out, it's time to move on to our other metallic that we're going to be using, and that's gunmetal. And we're just going to be painting this, of course, on his weapon he's got here in his hand, his sort of gnarly looking knife / short sword, as well as he also has, just on his back here, he's got a little thing on here. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it's another alchemist supply, but I'm going to be painting it up as a little lantern. So going over everywhere, over the little lantern he's got on him with the gunmetal is going to really make this look like a lantern. I'm not quite sure if it's a sort of a brewing thing for alchemy supplies, but I want to make it as a lantern, so we're going to turn it into a lantern here. As well as also, we just want to pick out the little spiky bits on his little bomb he's got on here too with that gunmetal. Okay, now we have that all done. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to come in with some demonic yellow. And the demonic yellow, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying it just in the middle point of this little thing on his back, which I'm not quite sure if it is a lantern or some other sort of alchemy supply, but I've decided to turn it into a lantern, so I want a little bit of light look like it's coming out of there, so just painting on the demonic yellow for that. Okay, so now with our little lantern finished up, we're going to come in now with some necromancer cloak. And the necromancer cloak, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be using it to be picking out the little sort of stitching detail he has all over his miniature. Now it is very small and hard to notice probably, especially since I've painted all one color, but I'm going to be emphasizing all of that, and the necromancer cloak is going to be the perfect color to pick out all these little details and make it show up on the miniature from a little bit of a distance on the table. So spending your time with a very fine tip brush picking these out. And with all that complete, what we're going to be doing now is moving in with some ivory. And with the ivory, what we're going to be doing is I'm just going to be applying this to his teeth, being very careful, especially with a fine tip brush, to be picking out each individual teeth. So don't be afraid, you can always come back in with the goblin skin and clean up around the mouth. But as well as that, with the ivory, I'm also going to be using it to be creating some sort of white streaks of light coming on to his goggles, so they look a lot more like actual glass than we have here with the blue. Now, let's take a little bit of time, and I'm just very lightly placing them, and they're basically at a 45-degree angle to make it look like the light is bouncing off them and creating sort of a bright streak effect on them. Take a little bit of time, and it's going to be very difficult to do this, but you just want to work at it and very slowly and lightly apply the white streaks to make it look like realistic glass. Okay, now with those goggles looking like the light's hitting them well, we can start moving into our washes. So starting off with some seraphim sepia, And the seraphim sepia I'm going to be using to apply over his skeleton bone sort of instruments he's got in his back to make his alchemy supplies. So as well as that, I'm also going to be using it to apply over any wrappings we've applied to him, so that's everywhere that we placed our deck tan. So don't forget to do those as well with the seraphim sepia. Okay, so once all that wash is completely dry, we're going to move on now with some green wash. And this is just green tone from Army Painter. I'm going to be using this, of course, to go everywhere that we've got any green, to really add some depth of color and sort of darken down that green color just a little bit, to give it that really nice, vibrant color that we're after. So just apply that everywhere that we have our green, and just watch out for it pooling in anywhere we don't want it to be. Okay, now with all that green completely dry, we're going to come in now with some agraxearthshade. And the agraxearthshade we want to apply everywhere that's basically brown. So nice and easy step to do here. We want it all over our quiver, our rope, our barrel he's got on his back, his leather armor, all those little pouches he's got on him. Just everywhere that's brown we want to be applying the agraxearthshade to. Okay, now with all that agraxearthshade dried up, we're going to come in now with some nuln oil. And nuln oil, as you know, I love it to place it on my metallics, and it's going to be no different here. We're going to be applying it all over our metallics, so nice and original here. Making sure that we get a nice good even coat over the whole lot and try and avoid it pooling anywhere else. Okay, now we have all the washes complete. Make sure they're completely dry before moving on to the step, and what we're going to be doing is some highlighting. So coming back in with our goblin green here, and all I'm going to be doing is hitting the high points, which is like the top of his ears, the top of his head, just the backs of his fingers, everywhere where the sun would naturally hit, to be applying this goblin green to give it the effect that light's bouncing off and brightening these parts up. And then once we've highlighted with the green, we're going to come in now with the hemp rope, and all we're going to do is being very carefully applying it over the areas where we've already got our ropes. Now I'm sort of applying it in sort of a dotting motion to just hit the points where the rope has some natural sort of twisting motions in it, the bits that are actually sculpted into the miniature reasonably well here, and I'm just trying to pick out those top bits with the hemp rope. Okay, now with all that rope all picked out, what we're going to be doing now is coming in with some cavalry brown, and I'm going to be using this to, of course, highlight the armor, and I'm just going to be, of course, hitting at the areas on the edges and the places that would naturally hit the sun. And of course, I'm using the fine tip brush to do this, so I'm only really catching the edges on here, really trying to avoid everywhere we've applied the washes and stuff like that as well. And once we've done and picked those out, we're going to come in now with some skeleton bone here, and all I'm going to be doing is doing the exact same thing, hitting the areas that would naturally be in the sunlight, which since this is to his back and he has all fully exposed, it's going to be a lot here. We're just going to be saving the seraphim sepia for the very recessed parts of all these little bone instruments on the miniature here. And then with that complete, we're going to come in now with some chainmail silver, and I'm just going to be using that edge highlighting all of our middle areas that we have on the miniature to give that nice shine effect. And then once you've done that, you can paint up the little bases on and call them done. But I'm going to be adding sort of an autumn style base to the miniature we've got here. I've never done an autumn style base, so I'm going to give it a try here. So stick around for the showcase to see what it came out like. And with all that completed, we have finally finished painting up our Goblin Alchemist from the Pathfinder Battles Wizkids range. And as you see with the little effect we did on the glasses, trying to make it look like he had some light streaking down on him, as well as adding in that autumn style base and highlighting all those different areas of brown with different colors of brown, has really made this miniature really stand out and pop on the table. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys, whether you want to paint along with me or you just enjoy watching me paint up some cool minis. So I'd like to thank you all again for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.